Before we go across and touch base with the management of Maruti to really track their meteoric rise in the story that's impressed one and all on the street, let me just go across to my colleague Karunya Rao, who maps what Maruti has done to impress the markets. Karunya?
Well, Tanveer, we have been celebrating our 9th anniversary, and what better a company to track than Maruti at this point of time. It's grown, as far as the stock move is concerned, it's grown 9x in the last 9 years. So clearly it's a winner. It's been setting landmarks and milestones with each passing year. So let's track the trajectory in the last 9 years, what Maruti has seen. Starting with the domestic sales trend, if you look at the PV industry, you know, Maruti has completely grown in tandem with the kind of growth that the PV industry has shown in the last 9 years. If you look at it, 15.5 lakh units was what the PV industry was selling as the entire volumes, including all the companies listed, unlisted, and Maruti from the start of, in fact, if you see the last 9 years, has been grabbing a very large chunk in the entire PV industries. In fact, in 2009, it was actually contributing more than 50% to the sales, and it has maintained that trajectory, barring just 2 to 3 years around 2011 to 2013, when Maruti saw a bit of a slip there in their contribution to the overall PV industries. The contribution, in fact, decreased a little bit in those 3 years, but yes, what a comeback it managed to make in 2013 onwards. If you see, with the launch of a lot of models, there was Brezza, there was Baleno, all of these models were launched in between 2014, 2015, 2016. And since then, we have only seen the volumes rise and the contribution of Maruti rise as far as the entire PV pie is concerned. Maruti's market share, you see, has gained. They've maintained a market share of 44% plus. Only, like I said, in 2011, 12 and 13 is when they saw a bit of a slip up. That's when the competition was entering. A lot of new players were entering. A lot of new models were being launched. And that's why the market share slipped a fair bit from Maruti. But yes, it has been seen an upward trajectory from 2013 onwards, and 2018, rather 2017-18 is the year the first time when it grabbed a share of more than 50% as far as the entire PV market goes. And the management, in fact, has guided time and again that they will only continue to rise from these current levels. The stock, like I said, has moved more than 9x in last 9 years, 800% growth it has shown. So let's go across the management to see what are the key triggers that lie ahead, what are the key challenges. Of course, among the key triggers, there are a lot of factors. They're revving up their small segment, they're tying up with Toyota, and as far as the concerns go, there are very few, and of course the management, I'm sure, will be able to address them.
Oh yeah, indeed. Let's take it across to Mr. R.C. Bhargava, Chairman at Maruti Suzuki India. And Karunya, thanks much for highlighting all of those details. Mr. Bhargava, we just celebrated 9 years and this is our anniversary week. Maruti has indeed been a critical part of this journey. So firstly, thank you. And secondly, tell us about the key milestones and changes that you've witnessed in the industry in the last 9 years, and how has Maruti clocked in this unparalleled growth?
No, Maruti has gone through ups and downs in these 9 years. It's not been a journey which has been one of steady high rates of growth throughout. You know, we did very well in 2010, 2011. And then there was a period when, because of the policies of government regarding petrol and diesel, which resulted in a massive difference growing between the price of petrol and diesel, it led to customers giving up petrol cars in large degree and moving towards diesel. And the result was that our market share then sank below 40%. And that was one major problem, because we didn't have at that point of time enough diesel cars to take advantage of the rush for diesel products in the market. We then also had the 2012 labor issues, which also set us back. Then we had the period when we were trying to convince our investors that Suzuki doing the investments in Gujarat was going to be a good thing with them. That resulted, at least in the market, initially not believing what we were saying, but subsequently, of course, all this has turned around. The market has suddenly realized that the Gujarat project is an absolute boon for them, that the prices of shares went up. The government after 2014 brought in a more rationalized method of dealing with fuel prices. The result today is that petrol prices and diesel prices are not very far apart. Petrol car sales has gone up, Maruti sales has gone up, many of our models have become blockbuster hits, and the result is that from below 40% market share, we have gone over 50%. I think now we are around, at this point of time, we've reached something around 54% or so.
Indeed. Your position as the market leader, Mr. Bhargava, has only consolidated, like you're rightly saying, in the last 9 years. So give us a glimpse of what all are you planning for further expansion over the next decade? What are the key triggers and strategies that you will adopt at Maruti?
And our basic strategy is to keep producing products and give to customers that joy of owning a car and driving it, which can only keep getting better over the years. So we don't have a specific strategy other than that. Everything flows from this, that how to make the customer happier with our products. And if we can keep our customers getting more and more delighted with what we offer them, then the growth will continue to be, I think, in double digits, and we'll have to keep creating capacities accordingly. At the moment, of course, we have Suzuki creating capacity in Gujarat. The second line, that the B line, is in an advanced stage of construction. It will be commissioned early in 2019. Work is going on the third line, which should come in the earlier part of 2020. And we'll look at further capacity increase after that, because the market has to be assessed carefully. There's no point creating capacities if the market is not going to sustain that demand. And we don't have all the other wherewithals to continue to give customer delight. So it's sales, service, spare parts, and whatever else the customer wants in terms of changes in technology and car ownership, the way the showrooms are run, the way the sales take place, the way the customers are handled, all of that has to be synchronized with the increase in capacity. Otherwise, if the customer finds he's not getting what he wants, it's no use creating capacity.
Mr. Bhargava, let's talk near term then. Rural markets are growing at a slightly faster rate than urban. How critical is rural reach in a scenario where sales in metros are stagnating? Do you see the share of rural markets shoot up higher? Also, what's the reason for muted growth in urban areas?
You know, top 10 cities were the ones where car sales started. But as any one of us living in the top 10 cities know, the infrastructure in these cities has not kept pace with the kind of growth of vehicular traffic which has taken place. And in all these cities, a car owner is not particularly delighted with the way he drives in the city because of traffic holdups, non-adherence to traffic laws, non-enforcement of violations of traffic laws, the kind of road rage one comes across. All these are negative factors in these big 10 cities. And the growth has slowed down because the infrastructure in these cities does not support a very much higher population of cars in these cities. On the other hand, the bulk of the Indian population lives outside these 10 cities. The economy is growing, and there is growth not only in these 10 cities, but I think the smaller cities, barring the 10 metros, are growing much faster than these 10 metros are growing. So I think it's particularly important that car manufacturers, as well as manufacturers of other goods, white goods, fast-moving consumer goods, and all of these, are paying more and more attention to the smaller cities, because there's money in these cities, there's a demand for a better lifestyle in these cities, And I think India has to grow not only in 10 big cities, it has to go across the board in all the cities.
You know, growth targeted in smaller cities and rural areas is what the market is focused on in the next few years. How do you see that trend?
Let me put it this way. The population of cars in India today is about 24 or 25 per 1,000 people. I think even for a country like India, if you look at what's comparable in Southeast Asia, leave alone the Western countries, a car population penetration of 100 to 150 is not unreasonable. So that gives you a kind of an idea of what kind of growth potential exists in this country. And that growth potential, if we're going to have a car density which is 5 or 6 times the current density, tells you how many millions of cars are needed to be produced in the next few years. In Europe, the density of vehicles is 500 per 1,000. But aiming for that, I think, is not something which is at all realistic. So I won't even talk about that.
Right. Several brokerages, Mr. Bhargava, have lowered margin expectations despite the optimistic volume growth for Maruti. And unlike your peers, you haven't passed on the raw material cost impact onto your customers as well. Is pricing a lever you could flex if commodities do continue to rally? And do you believe volume growth will be able to offset pressure on margins, especially given the escalation one has seen in prices?
You know, this is a matter which is constantly under review of our management and the financial people in the company. And we have in the past increased prices when we felt that an increase in price was something which had to happen. Otherwise, the company would not be generating enough resources to fund its growth in the future, as well as give a decent return to the shareholders. And I think that object of giving customers who have invested in Maruti a decent return on their investments, and at the same time having enough funds to take care of all the capex requirements and the future, including what's going to happen in the future with new technologies coming. I think those will remain the primary objectives. And if and when there is a feeling that now we need a price increase, we will not hesitate to increase prices.
Okay. So moving on then, the third generation Swift has sold about 1 lakh units in just a matter of 145 days. What's the waiting period now currently vis-a-vis, other top sellers like a Brezza, Baleno as well as Desire?
I believe the waiting period of most of these cars has come down significantly. We've been ramping up the production of these vehicles in demand, and I don't think anything has more than 4 or 5 weeks waiting period now.
Okay. What about capacity constraints? Because that's been a bit of worry for you since, Swift has taken up a large share of the Gujarat plant. But given your shared synergy with Toyota, would that be a concern completely put to rest? And what are some of the other benefits that you're targeting from this partnership?
No, there is no permanent solution to these things. Toyota's unutilized capacities will certainly help us, but they will not create a situation where we don't have to worry about the future if the market continues to grow and demand for Maruti cars continue to grow. So we'll factor in the cars which we will get from Toyota, but they will only be part of the total requirement of cars, because Toyota is not such a big manufacturing company in India. And we'll continue to add to capacities as and when they're required.
Okay, Mr. Bhargava, such a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for joining us as ET now turns 9, and we are only glad that you could be part of our anniversary week celebrations. That's the word coming in from Maruti.